I already know this is going to be a very long video, so I won't waste much time here at the start, but I do want to set things up. What you're about to see is the current owner of the inactive Arizona Coyotes, that's Alex Meruelo, and of course the NHL's commissioner, Gary Bettman. This is a press conference, there was some Q&A, it got interesting, it definitely got spicy at some points. Let's listen in.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. And I wanted to take this opportunity to address all of you and to answer whatever questions you may have.
And there's a lot of questions because, by the way, this is the very first time the league and the Coyotes have addressed anything. They just played their last game in the desert without the media reporting that and uncovering that. Without that, nobody would have known what this situation actually is.
Let me start by saying days like today are difficult, they're sad, and I sympathize with and understand and feel sorry about what the fans of the Coyotes are going through.
It's a very important first thing to say. Got to hand it to the commissioner.
And there probably is every conceivable emotion, and I respect that, and I feel badly about that. But I think if you look back from a league perspective over the last almost 3 decades, the NHL's support for hockey in the desert has been unwavering, to say the least.
True statement. I mean, it was support for so long, and then, man, it just turned away so quickly within the last week or two or maybe month or so.
And for anybody who's been on that journey with us, there have been countless times where we could have made another decision and we didn't.
That's true.
And so I hope everybody understands that this is a place that we believe hockey works. But we find ourselves here today under difficult circumstances because when the Coyotes moved into Mullett and played now 2 seasons there, the belief was that this was going to be temporary, 3 years. And I had in my mind, with everything that had to go on, even if there was a 4th year, if a building was coming out of the ground, people would understand and be excited, and we'd get through it.
It's a weird way to put it. If a building was just coming out of the ground, I know what he means.
But as things have now played out, and with the next step, the auction on June 27th, it became clear to me that not only had the timeline stretched, we were still dealing with uncertainty because there's still an auction to be had, and there's a theme park district and some other things that have to be set up. And so we were facing, I think, under a best case scenario, anywhere between 3 and 5 years more.
Wow.
In Mullett. And by the way, I do thank Arizona State University for enabling the Coyotes to use that facility.
Definitely bought him some time. There's no doubt about that.
And as a college rink, it's a good facility, but it's not a major league facility. And that's the point.
It's true.
With the potential of 5 more years, maybe, in Mullett, it's not fair to the players on the Coyotes. It's not fair to the players on the other teams that come in. It's not a major league facility. And the prospect of possibly playing playoff games there or a Stanley Cup final, it just didn't work. So
I'd been saying that for a long time. What if the Coyotes found themselves getting so good that it was a spotlight on the league because, they're in the conference final in a 4,500-seat arena? They would have had to have figured something else out. I said that long ago when the Coyotes actually even made this move, but now the team getting a little bit better, and obviously even that presented itself a challenge.
I decided we needed to look for a solution that dealt with that possibility, probability, actuality, and at the same time could keep hockey alive in the desert for the long term. So I was looking for a short-term solution and a long-term solution at the same time. The first that Alex Meruelo heard anything about what we wound up consummating and the board approved yesterday, was on March 6th.
Remember that date, by the way. A lot of people were making predictions right before March 6th, and everybody was saying, hey, beginning of March into February, where's the league at? Where the Coyotes at? And it turns out, here's the truth, a couple days later, after everybody was buzzing about this, Gary Bettman and his colleagues, they went down to Arizona to have this conversation.
That is the first time that I raised this with him, and his reaction was, no, I don't want to do that.
Shocker.
I and my family
Sorry.
believe in hockey in the desert. The Coyotes are important to us, and this isn't something that I think I'm inclined to do. And we then spent the next couple of weeks discussing why I believed it was appropriate for the Coyotes to go inactive.
Discussing why? Arguing, negotiating, pushing, I don't know, threatening. I won't go that far.
You know, there's been a lot written. Expansion, transfer. We've created a scenario here that I don't think anybody's ever done before. This franchise is inactive. We didn't expand. We have 32 active franchises. But it became clear to me, and I proposed this at the outset, that there was no way that Alex was going to agree to this if he wasn't going to have an opportunity to reactivate the franchise.
How many inactive pro sports franchises, sorry, I'll unfreeze you there, Gary. How many inactive professional sports franchises have there been? It's unprecedented, to be quite honest with you.
And that's where the concept of build a building in 5 years and we will reactivate the Coyotes. You'll be inactive. Alex is free to attend board meetings. The Coyotes don't get a vote because we're not 33 teams, but he's free to attend board meetings. He's going to stay involved. And I know he's committed to keeping hockey at the professional level alive in Arizona. And I know he's committed and passionate about getting a building built. You know, we could all talk about and reminisce, and I use that word in quotes, over the trials and tribulations of how we got here. But here's where we are.
Not good.
And from a league standpoint, from a player standpoint, from a Coyotes standpoint, what we're doing is really, in my mind, and the minds of the governors who approved this yesterday, the right way to proceed so that we can ultimately have hockey in the desert where I believe it can not just survive, but thrive.
So there you go. He spelled out the 5-year plan. He's saying that if the Meruelo family can build a building and prove that, the league will, without question, return back to Phoenix or the Valley in Arizona.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Gary.
Sorry, by the way, for some buzzing here in this audio. That's just how the feed went for everybody that got this clip.
First of all, I want to thank Gary and Bill Daly for being here today. Their commitment has been unwavering, and I mean that from day one. Gary has been vested probably for more than 28 years in the desert, and he strongly believes that it works. I have now been involved 5 years. In the last 2 years, I've seen something I've never seen before. There's no question that it works. Moving from Glendale to Tempe was the right decision. Our revenues far exceed what we ever did in Glendale, in 18,000 versus 4,500 seats. But more importantly, the fan base and the enthusiasm has been infectious. I've never seen anything like it before in my life, and I know, without a question, it works. And given the right location, which we're looked at getting in June 27th, given the right location and the new arena, I believe Arizona Coyotes could be top 10 in team-generating revenues. No question about it. I'm fully committed to doing that, and I'm excited.
Top 10 in revenues in the league? I mean, you've got Toronto's and Montreal's and Vancouver's and Chicago's and New York's and Los Angeles's, plural. You've got so many huge market teams, and the Coyotes could be top 10 revenue. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't be successful, but That's quite the claim. By the way, I didn't set this up properly. Mr. Meruelo has owned the team since 2019. So as much as everybody talks about Coyotes ownership across the 7 years of existence, it hasn't just been Alex Meruelo. It's been a handful of different owners who obviously have not put the team and the franchise in the best position to succeed. Now, you'll note that he was he was just talking there off the cuff.
I've got a few words I want to say.
I think he's about to read here off a script.
I've been confronted with most painful decision in my life and in my 40 years of business. My family and I are devastated. And to our fans, we share your disappointment and your heartbreak. I'm sorry things got to this point. I take full responsibility for my decisions and the outcome. I agree with Commissioner Gary Bettman that the NHL, that it was simply unfair to continue to have our players and coaches spend several more years playing in an arena that is not an NHL facility. I want to thank the team for what it has done on the ice, but also for the impact they have made in the community. We will miss them all. I wish them nothing but the absolute best.
It's kind of weird to just say goodbye to your players and your staff, but also keep the team's name and the promise of starting a new team, which, by the way, they will explain how that happens here later on. My first step is to reactivate the Coyotes. Comes on June 27th. There you go.
When I intend to win Arizona State land auction in Phoenix, in the city of Phoenix. My goal will be to build a first-class sports and entertainment district without seeking financial support from the public. No taxpayer dollars, no tax breaks. But I do need the support from the community and its leaders with the processing of the development is this transformative project. It cannot be done without them.
So, I mean, that sentence there, what he just said, no public money, no taxpayer money, he's going to have to get held to that now. I mean, that has been very clear about this site, this project, and what he aims to do. No more referendum votes. This one, if it's going to happen, is going to be entirely on his dime.
And it's truly a special project. You have my commitment to do everything in my power to keep the Coyotes in the Valley, to have one of the few communities in the country with 4 professional sports teams. This is a global sports market.
I agree.
In the meantime, my family and I will continue to embrace our responsibility to make a positive impact in the Valley. We plan to continue to financially support and grow youth hockey throughout the region.
Very important, by the way. I've made a whole video about that. I'm glad to hear that was one of the first things he's brought up.
And keep the Arizona Coyotes Foundation alive.
Also very important. Congratulations on that.
In addition, we intend to make a request to the NHL Board of Governors and ASU to relocate the Roadrunners to Mullett Arena.
Remember that right there. They've made the request. Not official. It sounds not official, but they've made the request. They're moving forward maybe on moving the AHL franchise, the Tucson Roadrunners, that's the Coyotes AHL, their top affiliate, to Tempe and to Mullett Arena to take the place of the vacated NHL team. Remember that, because that topic, and there's some questions that center around that still to come here.
This is a hockey town, and the continued presence of professional hockey in the Valley is extremely important. My words are heartfelt and sincere. I know that I'll be judged on what I'm able to accomplish going forward. I completely understand that.
That's an honest admission right there. I mean, it's up to him. It's no more words. It's more about actions, and that's going to be what's judged here.
I believe Coyotes hockey does belong in the desert. And after 5 years, I am more convinced than ever. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take questions.
So there you go. Some statements. And now the media is going to get their turn.
Mike, Craig Morgan will go first.
Craig Morgan, PHNX Sports.
Craig Morgan with PHNX Sports. Alex, this question is for you. I wonder if you have a sense of the uphill battle you have to face in terms of public opinion. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of disappointment, and there is an enormous amount of distrust for anything that you say at this point.
I understand that.
Wow.
And I can tell you one thing. I'm committed to making sure that everything I just said in the statement happens. I'm committed to the Valley. I'm committed to hockey. And I know for a fact, in the last 5 years, that this works. Arizona hockey works in the desert.
You know, having been in professional sports at the major league level for 43 years, There are plenty of times that fan bases get aggravated with the ownership of a team, and I believe that when Alex does what he needs to do so that this team can be reactivated, people will be looking forward, not looking back.
I appreciate that statement and the way that it's put out there, but this is a fork in the road. Like, things are either going to go one way or the other in the next 5 years. There's kind of no more gray area. This is either going to happen by April of 2029 or it's not. And if it doesn't, I mean, does the window actually close with the NHL, or does it just close with the Meruelo family? Can they then negotiate with somebody else to do an expansion franchise if the arena project doesn't happen somewhere in the valley?
Barry Bloom.
Barry Bloom from Sportico. Hi, gentlemen. So let's get to the proposal on what you want to do with the building of the arena. So my understanding is that you want an entertainment district established there, and that may be not the exact wording of it legally, but so that you can capture user fees to help pay for the project. Is that correct?
Correct. And it's a voluntary user fee surcharge. Correct.
These are funds that wouldn't exist but for the construction of the entertainment district.
Okay, so the entertainment district that was created down here for the Diamondbacks, which is what I think you want to replicate.
That's correct.
That was not a City of Phoenix, decision. That was signed into law by Governor Doug Ducey, and it's an Arizona state thing, not a Phoenix thing. That's number one.
This is only the second question, and it's getting deep already and spicy already.
Number two.
Is that a question?
Told you.
It's coming.
Oh.
The other thing is that what happened in Tempe was the exact same thing you wanted to do, was use user fees to pay off some of the debt that would have been created to build that project. It was misconstrued by people in the community that was a tax. How do you avoid that? What did you learn from Tempe when you go into this, and how do you fight that characterization with this new project?
You know, referendum in sports are kind of tough. They generally don't pass. We've learned Kansas City with the Super Bowl champions just had a referendum fail. This project, as currently outlined, doesn't require a referendum.
It's privately funded. If it's publicly funded, that's when situations like public referendum votes come into play.
It requires that, I believe, the city and the state and maybe a couple of other governing bodies need to enact some things, but it doesn't require a referendum.
Yeah, but you can have lawsuits. You're going to have to make a case to the public about it anyway.
That's also very, very true.
If there's outright hostility to another arena, and there are forces at bay that are going to do everything to prevent it, that'll be a problem. But I don't doubt Alex's commitment to try and deal with all of those head on.
I mean, that's as straightforward as it gets right there. What if there are other challenges? The league saying, well, we trust in our guy to do it here, and if he doesn't, well, it doesn't happen.
Second row on the left.
Cameron Cox, 12 News. Alex, I know you have a meeting with Mayor Gallego here soon, and the city's confirmed that their contract with the Sun bars them from providing any economic help to, like, competing arenas. What are your thoughts on that? Are you aware of that? How do you plan to get around that?
Interesting.
Well, I am aware of some of that, but yes, this is different because this is not the monies that the Suns requested was taxpayer dollars. They actually came from the city funds. This is not that. This is different.
This is all private.
I mean, it's the thing to do in 2024, to be honest with you. If you really want to get this done, if everything is on the line and you don't want to leave it in somebody else's hands, you take care of it yourself. And I credit Mr. Meruelo for going down this path if he actually goes ahead and does it.
Third row on the aisle.
Brandon Brown with the Phoenix Business Journal. Alex, as you go forward with this, I know, obviously, hockey operations staff is going up to Utah. What's your staff going to look like here? How many people are you keeping on? I know you've had to let people go earlier this year. Can you give us an idea of what layoffs on the office side have been like this year with the Coyotes?
What I can tell you is that we're going to look at not doing anything for the next 60 days to really assess the situation, but our intent is to keep everything intact, from the foundation to youth hockey to the actual business operations that we have.
I mean, if you don't have a team and you don't have revenue and you don't have gates and you don't have merchandise, I don't know how any of that's possible. I at least appreciate his kind of 60-day freeze on making any large decisions. That'll help buy some of his employees a little bit of time. But again, you can imagine what the downsize looks like here for a team that had a product, had a team, had players, had games and everything, and now has nothing. There's no revenue, so there's no real jobs to have here. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I guess I appreciate not doing any harsh decisions tomorrow. But again, it's going to happen quick here to what exists of this franchise.
That'll be assessed, but our goal right now is to really understand where we're at. And also we're talking about, of course, bringing the Roadrunners to Mullett, but we have not done anything with ASU. We need to make sure that we have an agreement. And
again, he mentions bringing the Roadrunners to ASU. They're talking about it. It doesn't sound permanent, doesn't sound like it's a done deal, but it sounds like they're pushing for that at least.
move forward.
And you have approval by the AHL Board of Governors that have to approve the relocation
The Roadrunners.
from Tucson. And the fact that there might not be a firmer plan than what Alex just laid out, remember, his first awareness of this was March 6th. And it took a couple of weeks of discussions. And the amount of lawyering and documentation and discussion and negotiation that had to go on in record time for a transaction that, at least in my time in sports, I've never seen before. We were creating some new ground in terms of how we did this and structured it. It's not surprising that there aren't complete answers yet in terms of how the Coyotes will staff themselves and plan themselves moving forward during the inactive period.
It's fluid. I get it.
Nick?
It's not going to be
second
great.
row, right?
Mr. Meruelo, obviously the first step is to win the land auction. If you do that, what are the next steps? And Commissioner Bettman, what are the benchmarks that you need to see over the next 5 years for the franchise to be reactivated?
Good question.
I'll go first.
Yeah, please.
The most important and critical thing we have to do now is win that land auction June 27th. And I have full commitment that I will win that land auction. Once that happens, like the gentleman just said a little while ago, I plan on meeting with the mayor of Phoenix and having her and the city officials work with me on the permitting process. And the other issue is, of course, the enactment of the theme park district.
Which is weird. It needs theme park district recognition. I mean, I guess that's what the project kind of entails. There's no rides, I don't think, but that's an interesting development on it. Oh, by the way, the land auction starts at $68.5 million. It's about $700,000 per acre for this approximate 100-acre site.
Those are things I plan on doing.
And you've seen that they have plans of what the arena looks like. I think they were posted on social media.
Leaked, you mean, on social media?
We're going to continue to monitor to see progress. Our agreement basically says we need about a year and a half notice to reactivate, and it doesn't have to wait 5 years. The faster they go, the faster the activation can take place, and we'll be looking for progress. Obviously, the most concrete thing will be a structure coming out of the ground.
Desert Dogs 2028, huh? One can only hope.
Second row on the left.
Question for both of you. Mark McClune with 3TV, CBS 5, Arizona's Family. Alex, you had a very public battle with the city of Glendale over unpaid bills. You've been accused of not paying hotel bills on the road this year for your team.
By the way, I had been hearing that rumor. I saw more of that in the last couple of days. That's one of the accusations against the Coyotes, that on the road, the hotels would ask for the money up front because they weren't sure that they would actually get the payment by the Coyotes during their road trips.
How much did unpaid bills get us to the point where we are today?
I'm not aware of any unpaid bills. And I can tell you one thing. To have been in business 40 years, having state licenses in media and banking, and also in Las Vegas when it comes to gaming commissions. You wouldn't be around if you didn't pay your bills. That's all I have to say about that.
I mean, didn't exactly answer it, definitely gave a response. That's interesting.
Right side, all the way on the right, second row.
Remy Masti from the Hockey News. Alex, this is for you. You've made a lot of public appearances the past couple of days, but I was wondering why haven't you made many public appearances over the past year?
Because I don't like the media.
Whoa! What? Now, wait a second. I know you just heard that. You got to let it sink in for a second. But sometimes the first thing that comes out of his mouth is what you might want to trust, I feel like. Oh, we'll let him explain this. He kind of dug himself a huge hole there, doing a press conference saying, because I don't like the media.
In fact, it's funny, I own 2 TV stations in Los Angeles, 5 radio stations in Los Angeles, and I have never once been on any radio or any TV. I don't like the media. I'm very, I avoid media for many reasons.
Gary Bettman is to his left, being like, oh no, I need to put the fire out. Here comes the fire hose.
Let me translate that a
Here
little bit.
comes.
I don't think anybody should take that personally. I think he doesn't like being a public person, right? And not that he dislikes the media, because as he says, he owns media, and all of you he wasn't referring to. It was some people don't like to be that out there in public.
I know, I'm not even saying this because I consider myself media. I guess I am. I don't know, whatever. But I don't take any offense to that. But you just got to be so careful and deliberate with your words and your body language and your presentation. And he didn't even waste half a second to give that response because I don't like the media. It just, you understand how even if that was with best intentions, it's so easily misinterpreted for the long run.
And, he wouldn't be the only owner in any sport who feels that way.
Let me clean it up.
Yep.
He's exactly right. I didn't mean it that way. I was being facetious, okay? Bottom line, I am involved in media for many years, but I don't like the limelight.
Walking it back.
I never have, and I don't feel comfortable with it. And so I can tell you that I've been very involved from day one.
But I will say this. I mean, it also is something that comes with the territory. Pro sports owner, athlete, coach, broadcaster, obviously you're in the middle of the limelight. And sometimes it's not comfortable. Sometimes it's not great. Sometimes it's not the position you want to be in. But I hate to say it, you are a very front-facing person of an organization. You own the team. And so there is some responsibility there to make appearances, comments, and statements.
5 years, I, along with my family, along with Javier Gutierrez and the entire team, have been very involved in this hockey operations to make the changes that are necessary to now what I believe is a great group of young players, and they're going to do extremely well as they move forward. Okay, but yes, I've learned that if you don't say too many things, you don't get in trouble.
I mean, yeah, but at some point, people are looking for answers, and at some point, you have to be the one to call the shots or tell it how it is or say what people want to hear or what they don't want to hear, but at least you're being honest about it. So hiding and running from it, I just don't know if that's always been the best policy. And look, this is all only important because if Arizona's going to get its hockey team back, this is literally the first, best, last, and only option, it feels like, for this man and his family to build a building that the team can play in.
Second row on the aisle.
Greg Esposito with PHNX Sports. Alex, do you have any regrets about the last 5 years and everything that's gone on?
I'm not sure I've had a time for regrets. I've been so busy with all the things that have been thrown at me at the same time. When I bought the team, we had COVID, right? After COVID, Glendale wants me to sign a 20-year extension. And I said I would not do that, and that's why they kicked me out. Let's be clear. They kicked me out not because I'm paid bills, because they wanted me to sign for 20 years, and I said I wouldn't do that because that was not the right decision for this organization.
I mean, there was a lot of things going on, it sounds like, with the Coyotes and Glendale. So to just narrow it down to one thing, I don't know about that, but just so you know.
The right decision is the one I made, was to move to Tempe, where we have thrived, and the fan base has been incredible, absolutely incredible. The problem is it's too small.
True, and true.
It's 4,500 seats versus an arena of 18,000. And Glendale was just too far.
But I mean, the issue here is that the team, once they moved to Mullett Arena, it was like putting their first few steps on the bridge to somewhere else, but the bridge that wasn't built to somewhere else yet. And instead of reaching the other side of where the bridge lands, they walked off the end of the bridge, which landed them in Salt Lake City.
I don't have anything against Glendale. I love Glendale. I love the people. I love the fans. But it's an hour-and-a-half drive. During the weekdays, it's very difficult. And people who live in Arizona, and I do now, they would understand the concerns that I've had with that.
I just did the drive 6-8 weeks ago. Yeah, during spring training. Glendale was not a fun trip, got to tell you.
Third row on the left.
Hi, Karina Vanek, the Arizona Republic. My question's for the commissioner. You've mentioned March 6th as the date that Mr. Meruelo was made aware of the intentions.
March 6th.
Yes. So what made you come to that conclusion in March when the election happened months before? What kind of led to the reasoning of March and then this record time deal?
Which is a great question and a setup and a thought here because, you know, everybody talks about how rushed this was and how everybody had to figure this out so fast. And hey, pat us on the back. We're great because we figured this out so fast. Why was it such a late realization? I mean, shouldn't the NHL, after last May, and the Tempe vote going how it did, the NHL should have checked in with the Coyotes in July, in September, and November, and December, and then January, and then February. But instead it was like, uh-oh, March 6th, here we are. Got to do something about it.
Well, it's never just one thing, but the prospect of the auction not being until June 27th, and we had to be doing a schedule for next year, and the prospect in the face of uncertainty that we were still between 3 years, best case, 5 years out, a pretty good case in terms of getting into a new arena. It was too long to you know, the average length of an NHL hockey player's career, if you were a Coyote, you might not have ever played in a major league building as your home rink.
So it sounds to me like in reverse here, the land auction taking up to 10 weeks, which it is basically going to take from the moment it was instilled to the moment it's actually going to happen. Sounds like that is the reason why the league says, okay, this is going longer. We need to do something about it. So in retrospect, maybe that was kind of the tipping point.
It just was too long. And from a league standpoint, hosting playoffs, even just hosting regular season games, my hope was when the team first moved to Mullett, and I think I said this previously, okay, we'd be there 3 years. That was the timetable. If it slipped to 4, but you could see the building coming out of the ground, we would have lived with that. But this is just too long, and it needed to be corrected sooner rather than later.
So Mullett Arena obviously bought them some time, didn't buy them extra time, and it was the bridge that just didn't lead anywhere yet. Simple as that.
Second row on the right.
Chase Beardsley, the Hockey Writers. Alex, you said earlier your intent is to move the Roadrunners to Mullett Arena. Do you have any plans of helping out the hockey community down in Tucson if that happens?
There has been a lot of, look, this is very early in the process, so I'm not sure what we're going to do. We've talked about maybe playing half the season in Tucson, half the season in Mullett.
I just suggested that in a video the other day because you don't want to see the domino effect of then Tucson having to lose even an AHL team over this. It would be great to get something for the Valley so that they can have their appetite satisfied somehow with professional hockey. But again, you don't want to make somebody else lose everything just because you did. And I think it was very clear. Now that I've kind of gone through this again, it was suggested before that they might move the AHL team.
There's a lot of discussions going on. There's no commitments from anybody right now. So I want to make sure that my words were taken out of context the other day. I did say them, but we don't have any agreements with ASU, or right now we haven't even spoken to the people from Tucson.
But they do have, it sounds like, the commissioner just said, AHL Board of Governor approval to move the team from Tucson to Tempe if they actually want to do that.
But we have different ideas, so we just want to make sure that we continue to have hockey thrive in the desert.
And it's understandable, as I said before, that there aren't answers to everything because what we managed to do in the last 5 weeks was, from all standpoints, our lawyers, Ryan Smith and his people, and Alex and his lawyers, we didn't actually get full signatures until 2 a.m. yesterday.
But that's like saying, well, I didn't work on the homework assignment until the night before it was due, and I pulled an all-nighter and I got it done. But I mean, you've known about the homework assignment for 3 weeks. This should have not come as a surprise to anybody. Again, they're congratulating themselves on getting it done and having it resolved and finding a solution that is agreeable to almost everybody, at least here from the ownership level, certainly not the fan perspective. But the point is that they're the ones that caused the delay and the rush.
So this, in terms of the details as to what happens going forward, other than the structure of the deal, there's some work to be done, which is understandable.
I understand that too.
Second row on the left.
It's very fluid.
Hi, Colin Harmon, ABC 15. Alex, this is for you. I hear your hesitancy towards, the media and the limelight, but between yourself and
me?
Javier Gutierrez, I know a lot of lifelong season ticket holders have expressed frustration about not hearing from either of you guys throughout this, and also the concerns over the season ticket deposits that they've made. They're wondering when they will see their money returned.
Okay, so first of all, again, I was being facetious, okay? I was being facetious. I do love the media. I'm in the business, so I'm trying to understand that. Number
That got him rattled a little bit again, just hearing that again.
one, okay? I just don't like the limelight. In regards to your next question, I think you had 3 questions. What was the
Forgot
second
the
one?
question, yep.
Season ticket refunds.
The question is addressing season ticket holders, because they, from what I've heard, you guys haven't addressed them specifically. And then
I mean, season ticket holders, that one should be easy. They'll get their money back in X amount of days or weeks. We're processing it. We're going to take care of everything. It's a done deal, not even a conversation. That should be what the answer is here.
refunds for season ticket deposits that have been made.
And you also said I hadn't spoken. And the reason why I haven't spoken was because I wasn't able to speak. I've been, for many years, basically for 4 or 5 years, I've been either gagged, threatened, or I can't speak.
Really? I mean, I think we need to know a little bit more about that. You're an owner of a team that can't speak about the situation. Was it different constraints? I find that interesting. And I'm not saying that he's wrong about it. I'm just curious to know what the reason or what the reasons were.
Now I'm finally here and I'm speaking. As far as the ticket refunds, I know we're addressing that, but again, this is all happening right away. Just give me a little bit of time and it will be addressed immediately.
No, there wasn't anything he could say because until it was done, it wasn't done.
But that's about this. He just said for 4 or 5 years he hasn't been able to speak openly about things.
I mean, there were a lot of leaks, and I'm...
Wait a second. What'd you say, Gary?
A lot of leaks.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of leaks.
Of course not.
But there was uncertainty until it was done. This is a highly complex transaction, and I'll reiterate, one that he didn't ask for. And at the end of the day, we were trying in real time to accomplish what we needed to do. And it wasn't like somebody had been sitting on this for 2 years and had been planned out in advance. Again, this wasn't done until yesterday at 2 a.m.
But see, I mean, the leaks thing, that came from people in the league when all of a sudden the NHL started passing around next year's schedule, and it had alternate versions. Here's if the team is in Arizona. Here's if the team is in Utah. Here are the 2 different schedules and how it would look. You can't hand that out to everybody internally in the league and expect that nobody's going to tell the media about that.
And season ticket refunds will be made immediately.
Immediately. We're going to look at it and we'll address it immediately.
There you go.
Give me a chance to breathe a little bit.
All right.
It's been very, like Gary said, it's been overwhelming.
I mean, that's emotional right there. That's personal. You can tell he feels it, and that was the right answer, right? That's exactly all anybody needed to hear.
Third row on the right.
Did Gary just check his watch right there? Yes, he did.
Erin Patterson, K-Gun 9 in Tucson. What message do you have for the fans of the Roadrunners in Tucson now that they may lose their AHL team?
Oh, boy. And you know what? Again, it's an issue. It's a thing. I understand why the media is going for it. When I initially watched this, I thought he said, we're going to do this. If I go back and revisit it, pretty sure he said, we're considering this. We've got the approval to do it. But certainly now this is a line of questioning that it just, again, it's one of those things. It wasn't 100% clear. So now it's invoking these types of questions.
I didn't say...
He's flustered by that, obviously.
We haven't decided that. So again, I'll answer the question again. Right now, we're not sure what we're going to do. We have different ideas and different plans. We haven't yet come to a conclusion. So far, we're very happy in Tucson, and the Roadrunners have done very well. This year, I think we're in second place or first place, and we're very excited about the team and the future. But we have not yet decided where we're going to go. So I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
I mean, in fairness, it was mentioned earlier, and maybe a lot of people misinterpreted it, or it wasn't entirely clear. So it's one of those things. It just has to be spelled out so clear at this point. And if you don't know, the answer is we've got some options. Here's a few of them. We don't exactly know which one we're going to pick, but let's be very clear. We don't have anything. So again, I understand why this is coming up, though. It's the domino effect.
Third row on the left.
Yep. Greg Barr with the Business Journal. Just to finally clarify one thing before I ask my question, just about Tucson. So when the team starts the playoffs next week, that will be at the Tucson Arena, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
They're not going to move them away mid-season, are they?
Yesterday in Utah, the minute that they announced that this deal was done, they had more than 11,000 people plunk down deposits for season tickets. It was always a tough sell here for season tickets over the years, like, 3,000 at the most and only a couple of thousand at Mullett. So how do you translate, this great excitement for hockey in Utah with saying, when you talk about the excitement for hockey in Phoenix, looking at those numbers?
I'll understand the question. I definitely will. But I'll also defend the Coyotes in this one. That's apples and oranges. You have something brand new, exciting. They don't even have a team name yet. They don't know any details in Utah. Yeah, there's a lot of people throwing money at something that has no existence yet. And I understand. Yeah, I get it. But the point is that the Arizona Coyotes have never had, the right setup, the right team. They've never had everything in unison to capture that. And even still, they have had success, even if for brief stints. It's workable in the desert. Again, I think my point here in this question is it's offering too much apples and oranges to totally different situations and trying to make Arizona look maybe bad in the process.
Well, I think with the Arena Challenge, it has had an impact on attendance, obviously. Not to be flip, but in terms of the adjustment we're making while the Coyotes are inactive, I think we made a good decision. But as it relates to the ownership in Salt Lake City and with respect to the market itself, and the number is now up to 20,000.
Commenting on Arizona.
20,000 in Utah.
I'm not sure, this is way before my time. I am not sure that the Coyotes were ever given a fair chance.
And that's what I just said. Bad building in the first one. Not a bad building for the Suns, but a bad building for the Coyotes. Number 2 was a building for the Coyotes, but in a terrible location. And then number 3 was just capacity. It was in the right location. It just wasn't the right building.
They went to Phoenix, where they had issues with the obstruction of 4,000 seats, right? And they couldn't play there. They went to a new arena in Glendale, which is way too far. So one had obstruction of views. The next one had an issue where it was too far to go. And then from there, we went to Mullett, where it's been incredible success. It has been very positive.
Let's not do the history because it doesn't help, but Alex is also missing the piece where somebody tried to move the team over the league's objective. I mean, the journey has been littered with potholes, unfortunately. And we've always stood by the franchise. And again, with the right to reactivate, we're still standing by this market. I believe that a team belongs here. We need a new arena.
I'll give them that. I mean, and how it happens and how it's laid out to happen are fine, but it's pretty straightforward at this point. And I do appreciate the league's backing of this hockey market.
I agree with them 100%. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, and I've witnessed it over the last couple of years at Mullett. It has been incredible, absolutely incredible.
Third row on the aisle.
Patrick Brown, ArizonaCoyotes.com. Question for Mr. Bettman, and kind of to piggyback off of what you just said. You've always been committed to this market. You've been here a long time. Just wondering if you have a message for the fans and the long-time season ticket holders and their support over the years.
I opened by addressing the season ticket holders and the other fans, and I'll reiterate. I'm sorry that we're in this situation. The team needs a new building in the right location. despite the fact that ownership, Mr. Meruelo, is prepared to pay for this without taxpayer assistance, there have been obstacles, and we're hoping they'll be overcome because we want to see this team reactivated.
I think it's fair to say that if you want a team to stay forever, they kind of need a forever home.
In the front.
Leah Merrill, PHNX Sports. You addressed the inability to address this publicly, but internally, why did you not address the staff before yesterday and the players to let them know that you understood their concerns, and why did you cancel multiple meetings to do that?
Leah, by the way, I've talked to her. I'm hoping to have her here on the channel to explain everything that she and the media down there have gone through with all of this. But yeah, it is curious, right? The lack of communication from top down about what was going on and how players found out about all this through the media. Again, if this was really a discussion behind the scenes, I guess I understand you can't tell everybody everything because then it leaks and you look bad, but that's the point. Like the NHL and the Coyotes should have got ahead of all of this instead of letting it seep out, letting it get to all the places that it shouldn't have been going. Great question by Leah.
I'll answer it for him for the umpteenth time. Nobody knew anything until yesterday.
Well, that's also fair, but you did know things because you were in the process. You didn't know if they were finalized, and you didn't want to say anything until they were finalized.
It was far from done. It was a work in progress over roughly a 4-week period. And to suggest that we should be out there saying what was going to happen when nobody knew until it was done, I think that's a little unfair as it relates to Coyotes management and ownership.
It's just, though, it's the whole process that probably should have started 4 months prior to this, so not to rush the end point, so to actually do this through proper channels and to, again, not have a scramble here at the finish.
All the way in the back on the aisle.
Elliot Polikoff, Arizona's Family. Alex, this question is for you. I know you talked about not really having time for regrets and all of the potholes that have come up over the last 5 years. Is there one thing, looking back, that you would have done differently if you could have that stands out? And if so, what would that one thing be?
I'm not sure quite how to answer that question. I really haven't really thought. Honestly, I've been so focused when I got here 5 years ago during the entire time that I haven't reflected anything on what I would have done different. Could have been different things that I might have done. I think if I sit down and I think about it in the future, maybe. I think we've done everything possible considering the circumstance that I've been involved with.
I will, even though you didn't ask me the question,
yes,
and
Gary.
even though it's not a regret, my biggest disappointment is that the referendum failed in Tempe.
But I mean, you said earlier that you understand when referendum votes happen, they generally go against the sports team project. I think we all know that about this day and age.
I've never seen a more public-private win-win than that was, and not the least of which the landfill is still there and going to be there for a long time.
I don't disagree, but it's a referendum vote, and you have people who are leaned one way or the other. Some are fully informed, some are not informed at all. It was pretty decidedly, what am I trying to say? The result was pretty decisive, right? It wasn't like a really slim margin on the final vote, but to the point, referendum votes just don't have a lot of success, even when you think you're completely in the right.
And there was an opportunity for it to be funded privately to clean it up. That disappointed me. Of all the things we had to deal with over the last 27 years, I found that the most disappointing.
Of course, that would have been the easy out.
Back on the left.
But again, you're leaving it to chance. And at least with this new next project, there's not a lot left to chance because of the private financing.
Hi, good morning there. Lauren Clark, Fox 10 News. Thank you so much for having this press conference. Amongst the fan base, there's a lot of anger and a lot of hurt in regards to how they found out about this news. And granted, there was some, legal elements going on too. But what's the message you want to send out to fans about communication going forward?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. Like I said before, the Coyotes technically played their last game ever. Well, for now, or maybe forever, in Arizona without any official word about that. Everything we knew from it, or because of it, was from the media.
Well, first of all, we're both here, and I'm here to address it so the league hasn't abandoned this market or the fans. And again,
fair enough.
What we did in the last month in terms of structure and everything else, A, has never been done before, and B, wasn't done until it was done, until the last documents were. So there wasn't anything you could tell anybody other than what would fuel further speculation, because it wasn't done until it was done. It was done yesterday. Board approved it. There were times where we had discussions the night before about canceling the board meeting because it wasn't done. And so I think people are being a little unfair under the circumstances of what we accomplished and what we did and when the first time we had certainty was.
Again, the real takeaway, all of this should have happened much sooner in the process than it actually did. Simple as that.
Third row on the right.
Anthony Remedios, Cronkite News.
I'm sorry. Wait a second. Were you just posing for a photo right there? What? And then why watch the face afterwards?
Anthony Remedios, Cronkite News. Thank you guys both for your time this morning.
What?
There were reports that started yesterday that
he must have saw a photographer. By the way, I think this was somebody from Cronkite Media, which is, I think, the ASU School of Journalism.
For you, Mr. Bettman, that the new Utah team may not have a team name in this first season. Is there anything you can confirm about those reports at this time?
No. We'll have those discussions on an ongoing basis with ownership in Utah, but, to find a name, to trademark a name, to make sure there are no conflicts, to then have a campaign to unveil the name, you can't do that in this time frame. That's just another element, an indication of what we were dealing with in real time in a short window. And if the team doesn't have a real name to start out,
Wow.
That'll be the case. At some point, I promise you they'll have a name, but the time frame just doesn't allow for it, which is consistent with everything else I've been saying about.
Which is why the time frame should have started January 1st, maybe.
Not everything could get done based on what we did in the time frame that we were doing it.
All the way in the back left corner.
Patrick Hayes with ABC 15. Did the league or the Coyotes talk to any other potential buyers that had interest in keeping the Coyotes in Arizona and had a different plan other than building an arena
I
from
believed
scratch?
I had a very good sense of what was doable and not doable, what was realistic and not realistic, and unless somebody could put up a new hockey-friendly building overnight, wasn't going to happen here.
Fourth row on the right.
Good question. I appreciate the response.
Zach Mott, Cronkite News. This is for the commissioner. When did Ryan Smith first express his interest in owning an NHL team?
2 years ago. And in fact, I think on January 24th, he sent us a letter, which was then released publicly, requesting that we consider Utah for expansion.
But also said that Utah would be ready starting as soon as next season if they could get a hockey team.
And we have time for a few follow-ups. Second row on the left.
Commissioner, this is for you. What happens next if Mr. Meruelo isn't able to come to completion with some of the terms of this agreement?
Great question. We need the answer to that one, and we need this pretty straightforward right here.
Mr. Meruelo has 5 years to get a building built, to reactivate the team, and I know he's absolutely committed to doing everything possible to do it. That requires a hypothetical and speculative answer, and I'm not doing that because I believe that he's going to do what he says he's going to do.
Won't even address the possibility of if it doesn't happen, but it's not clear. Does that mean that he doesn't retain the window? The window is wide open to anybody else. The window is open to, well, it's closed, but it's up to the league to decide what to do in Arizona. Again, like, this is such a chance and an opportunity, but is this just for Mr. Meruelo, or is this for the Arizona hockey market? Like, after 5 years, this is their one and only chance. That part's not really clear right now. Or how about this? If the Meruelo family can't get it done, can they sell the right to the inactive team that they own to somebody else to get it done in 5 years?
About what? with all due respect, if you've been listening to the conversation we've been having here about what we've done in a short window, there's an auction on June 27th. That's step one to getting this done.
Spicy.
Second row, Nick.
Just want to flesh out the details on that short window. I think you said March 6th was the first time you approached Mr. Meruelo with this idea. He said no. It took 2 weeks of discussions. At what point did he agree in principle, and did you really start hashing out details? Because probably 3 weeks at most.
There was an agreement at 40,000 feet conceptually, and then we had to get more granular to 30,000 feet. This didn't get wrestled to the ground till this week.
Again, it's a very you have to understand, they've done an amazing job, and so have we. To do this over a period of time of 3-4 weeks on something never been done before is unprecedented. We were on uncharted waters the entire time.
And I will give them that for everybody involved. The Coyotes, the league, the Smith Group in Utah. When has something like this ever happened? I mean, I'm sure there have been similar type things, but this exact way, in this modern age, this is what nobody saw coming.
And it was very stressful and many hours, and I thank everybody who worked on this project because there's been a lot of people, a lot of hours, a lot of non-sleeping to get to this point. It's been very difficult.
Second row in the aisle.
Alex, Gary mentioned that Tempe was probably the biggest regret and kind of how that went down, but multiple sources internally and externally said you weren't willing to spend enough money on the campaign and you didn't start soon enough and that you didn't have the right people in place.
Whoa. That's on the Tempe Arena campaign from last year.
How do you respond to that?
That's Monday night quarterbacking, right? I spent $7 million on this campaign.
Monday morning quarterbacking.
$7 million for a residency of 200,000 people, which actually 30,000 people vote. Okay? Can you please ask Kansas City? They didn't have theirs passed either. And they won 2 Super Bowl.
Wow.
I personally went door to door knocking over 1,000 doors over a 30-day period. Not only did I, my family did that. All the executive team did that. We were there face to face with everybody. I did everything I possibly humanly could do to make this win.
They tried to win that referendum vote. They really, really did.
And it's unfortunate. And do I regret that? I understand where Gary's coming from. I'm unhappy that it happened. I'm not sure it's a regret for me, but I'm unhappy that it didn't pass because we gave it everything I had, everything we possibly had to do it to make sure that we won. In fact, we were told to the last minute that we were going to win by a landslide.
Whoa. It's highly inaccurate information. And by the way, that $7 million amount, it has been publicly questioned. I'm not here to say right or wrong, but to some degree, in the millions of dollars to try and get the word out, to try and have that vote pass, at least educate people up to their final decision, which unfortunately for the Coyotes, they made their final decision on all 3 measures. I think it was, I don't remember the names of them, but all 3 measures on that ballot.
So to make those statements are people who really are not informed and are just Monday night quarterbacking.
It's part of the referendum vote, though, right? That's the process of leaving it up to the public's hands. Maybe they don't know everything about it. Maybe they just look at a billionaire owner of a professional sports team.
Barry?
So we've been talking a lot about the things that went wrong. One of the things I think that went absolutely right was the way you built hockey operations here, and now you're sending a hell of a team to Salt Lake City with a lot of cap space to give them a chance to really win. So I'm wondering, when you get through this whole process, and I'm sure you haven't even thought of it, how do you rebuild the hockey operations that is gone? And Gary, would they get the kind of expansion draft that Seattle and Las Vegas had?
One of the points of contention in the discussion was that Alex felt very strongly that they had done a very good job in terms of their plan to build this team.
That's fair.
They will get, when they reactivate, a team that will be composed the same way that Vegas and Seattle were.
Expansion draft style. Poaching from the other teams. Interesting.
I'll add to that.
And that could make them an equally good team almost immediately all over again. So that was definitely something you understand had to be negotiated as part of this.
I have been criticized for my hockey operations, which I find it baffling because I agree with you 100%. what we have created over the last 4 years is unbelievable. Never been done before. With the amount of draft picks that we have and the team that we've acquired and that I have, along with Bill Armstrong and my son and my family, handpicked, we have an incredible team that they're going to be receiving now in the next, it's on their way right now as we speak.
And I don't know if it makes it better or worse. Scripps has been very cooperative, extremely so, and we're grateful. We're going to flip markets, so Scripps is going to pick up the games of the team in Utah, and the games will be down here as part of the Utah team's extended market.
So that's the TV contract and package Scripps, right? What's the appetite if you still live in Phoenix and your team is now in Salt Lake City? Is that something you're really going to want to follow and watch? Maybe for some, maybe they're that attached to certain players, but that's an interesting part of this. And by the way, that's an interesting part of the Roadrunners connection. They're still the AHL affiliate of the Utah hockey team now. That means that in Tempe, when you have a player that's so good, say bye-bye, because that player, just like your former NHL team, is going to Salt Lake. And I'm not saying that to rub it in. I hope that wasn't too harsh. That's one of the unfortunate realizations of this entire process.
That may make it better, it may make it worse, but the games will be viewable here.
And the last comment on that, you asked me if, we did it once, can I do it again? Absolutely, we can do it again. Now I really know how things work.
All right.
And I'm very comfortable with that.
That's hard.
So isn't this market, wasn't Utah Las Vegas's market?
The Utah's extended market for Colorado and Vegas, we're now going to flip Salt Lake City, Utah, and Arizona.
Okay.
So the games will be available here.
And then one more technical question with your March 6th timeline. The actual posting of the auction wasn't done until about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but I knew what was going on. The fact that it wasn't posted, right. I knew the dynamic that was going on.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Third row on the aisle.
You're on a need-to-know
Speaking about
basis.
future development, with this, having these next 5 years to kind of figure that out, maybe less. We get it done. Alex, do you imagine maybe bringing in other partners, whether it's maybe ownership within the team or within the development, to bring people in the more either capital or knowledge on that project?
I'll answer that question. Under our agreement, the rights to reactivate are personal to Alex. Under our agreement, he can only bring in a partner for up to 20% of the club, and he cannot build the building, have the club there, and then turn around and sell it. He has to keep it for at least another 5 years. So this isn't a situation, and I've seen some speculation and commentary about that. This is not a flip-it situation.
That's what I brought up earlier. I did not know the answer to that. Now we know the answer to that. So it really is on Alex Meruelo and his family to get this done. He can take on other people. He can't take on somebody to overtake him in the ownership. And I think even when it was 5 years after the building goes up, he can't flip it to somebody else. This is his project and his, let's face it, responsibility now.
I think what he's also saying is he wants me to stay in the league for another 5 years, on top of the 5 I've already been there, plus 5 more. So he wants me here for a while.
Way to smooth it over. I thought you didn't like the media. I thought you didn't like the limelight.
Exactly.
That was a good smooth it over comment right there.
Good. We'll take two more. Craig, in the front.
Craig Morgan.
Alex, you mentioned earlier that you're thriving in Tempe. From a ticket sales standpoint, Javier has gone on record talking about how much better it is than it was in Glendale. But I don't think we've addressed the overall financial picture for you. And I'm curious what sort of challenge that has been for you and how maybe that has impacted a lot of the decisions that you've made.
It's going to need a lot of money for this project, I tell you that.
Well, you have to understand, yes, the ticket revenues have been far exceeding what we did in Glendale, 100%. But also, I just finished telling you, it's 4,500 seats. It's very hard to compete when you have an arena that's 4,500 seats, and that's one of the reasons we're here in the first place. I do believe strongly that when we get to a new arena in the right location, 17,000, 18,000 facility, I believe we could be top 10 in league revenue team.
There it is again. That's an aspiration, but I think you got to be careful with those things. You're going to be held to that now.
I'm sorry, were you cutting me off?
It's too specific. Whoa, what?
Team league revenue team.
What was that?
I'm sorry, were you cutting me off? No. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very comfortable that
what?
If we have the right location with a new arena in a new district, we could be top 10 in the league when it comes to generating revenues, period.
Top 10. Philly, Boston, Chicago.
What has impacted me is the situation to be in Mullett, where we were hand-tied in so many ways that I couldn't really give the first class. I did as much as I could as far as our, sports science, nutrition, analytics. I mean, I gave everything hockey operations asked for and more. But you have to understand, we were constrained by the facility, we were in different buildings. It was not a good situation.
Well, and that's the point. From our standpoint, it's not a major league facility.
And that's the other thing, is leaving Glendale or being forced out of Glendale or having it not go well with Glendale, like that was really the tipping point here. And then being at Mullett Arena was kind of like just starting the clock. The expiration date was coming much sooner than later, being at Mullett Arena.
And
it's not.
We had enough time in a college rink, as nice as a college rink as it is. The question that you're really asking is, was he losing a lot of money? You betcha. He was losing a ton.
Oh. Gary saying it for the team. Interesting.
Thank you for that. I didn't want to say that because I don't think. Look, at the end of the day, fans don't really care.
I got it. I said it. You don't have to say it. Yeah. But no, he did what he had to do. I mean, the club is a club in good standing, and even though it's now going to be inactive, but they were meeting their obligations as they came due, despite the fact that the expenses were greatly exceeding the revenue.
And that's one thing about professional sports, unless it's publicly held, the books are sealed. You'll never know how much they're making or losing or breaking even.
Okay.
One last one in the second row.
Commissioner, this one's for you, I guess along those lines. In terms of the timeline and the process, rather than waiting for the June 27th vote or the land auction to see what transpires, I guess, what was the urgency in going to Utah? Because my understanding is they still have public things to do in terms of getting their arena all set for NHL.
They just passed $900 million. That's one of the reasons the NHL accelerated this. They were like, wait, you just passed $900 million for the fixing up of the Delta Center or to build something new for a hockey team? Hello. Of course, that's how the NHL viewed this.
The two things going on there, and then I'll answer your question. There are 12,000 unobstructed seats, 4,000 obstructed. They have plans, which I've seen, to take it to 17,000 over the 2 summers after this. So they'll be up to 17,000 plus in short order. But it's an improved situation. Ideally, they probably would have preferred the timing of an expansion team, and they stepped up at our request to do this. At the end of the day, when we looked at what we had to do and the time frame we were working on, I had confidence that Ryan Smith and his partners would have the resources necessary to close this transaction in a matter of weeks. 2, from a geographic standpoint, since we've got a schedule that's substantially done for next season, the geography worked. And 3, we didn't have to deal with any realignment issues, which we didn't have the time to deal with either. So in addition to the fact that Salt Lake City, Utah was a place where we felt that we wanted to be in the long term, we had somebody under the right circumstances who was willing to step up and literally drink through a fire hose over this summer to make it work.
Yeah, and they've got a challenge ahead. There's no question about it.
And with that, I thank you all for your indulgence.
Watch how he ends this.
Your time for being here. I'd like to say, as General MacArthur did, we shall return.
Thank you.
Well. Under what circumstances will he return? Will it be after a land auction is won? After a land auction isn't won? And now what do we do? I mean, there is so much to still watch and pay attention to with the future of the Coyotes. I mean, What happens in Utah is equally interesting, but it feels like now that's under a lot more control, and what the group's going to do, and really, what are the questions? What's the team name going to be? Just a few other minor things. Now we're understanding the situation a lot better. Again, I still think the most interesting part is where the hockey team is not anymore, and that's down in Arizona. All right, almost an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to stop the video right there, but hopefully you learned something. We went through this together, and it helps you understand the situation from the Arizona side just a little bit better. Thumbs up down below on this video. You know that'll help me, this video, this channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I will definitely love to see you back next time for a much shorter video.